Bigfoot, Dogman, Jersey Devil, and others. Are they real? Figments of our imagination? Or the most cleverly disregarded reality of all time? Come into the cabin, let's sit down and find out together. Hey guys, welcome back to the cabin. I'm Robbie.
I'm Norman.
I'm Steve.
And we are Johnny-less tonight.
Yeah, he's got something going on. We won't describe what kind of show he's having to deal with right now.
He's having one of them days.
It happens.
Well, boys, we got an interesting one tonight.
I see, and you are very excited about it with Steve.
I watched this video last night, and I'd kind of heard a little bit about it, but for whatever reason, I didn't look for it on YouTube, and it just happened to pop up on my recommended stream last night, and I thought, oh, I'm going to watch that. You know, especially like the Monday night before we record.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I'll just scroll through if I can see something that's going to give us an idea. And I first heard about this with Jessica, the Cryptid Huntress.
Right.
But like I said, I didn't really. We've all seen the Patterson Gimlin footage.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That film is famous. So it's on me, and it's my fault for not looking this thing up sooner. Norm, you've seen it now. Steve, you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we'd have seen this.
I've known over the years they've done different things to try to break the myth of the PG film. They've done different types of recreations with athletes, stop motion, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, Grover Krantz has done. Before he died, he did, and that man was smarter than I could ever even hope to be. Mm-hmm. And he did several documentaries about this. He had professional basketball players, like you were talking about, trying to recreate this stuff and never could recreate it. And we've heard the debate. I've heard Dr. Meldrum say it. Their technology back then did not exist to make a suit like that. Tyler was just talking to us before the show. Speaking of the Alien movie, that in today's economy, adjusting for inflation, the prosthetic suit that they used for the Alien in 1977, that would have cost in today's terms $2 million.
Yes.
They didn't have that in the 68.
Not something as elaborate.
68 when this. On a 30 millimeter or 8 millimeter? Which one was it? 30? I think
8 millimeter, I think.
Well, yeah.
Standard cameras, I think it was about
standard
8 millimeter.
Yeah.
8 or 16, but I think it was an 8.
Patterson Gimlin didn't have the budget to go.
No.
And the only thing that's comparable at that time was the monkey suits from Planet of the Apes.
Those didn't come out till...
Looks
about the same time.
Yeah, about the same time, but looks completely, totally different. And you can look at those, and you can tell that the hair's fake, and as Tyler said, like when we used the Chewbacca analogy, you can tell that hair's dead. You can tell it's placed on suit. And I know the folks listening aren't looking at this video at the time like we did, but we really, really, really urge all those of you out there listening to this to go look this video up. It's called, and Tyler, correct me if I get the title completely wrong, but it's basically is the genie out of the bottle on the Patterson Gimlin film. And the I guess the publisher, owner of the video, Greenwave, but it's M.K. Davis, he's a legend in the field. He probably knows more about the Honey Island swamp monster than most normal people. And he's been on DAX Machina with us. The man's just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this. Now, he's got some opinions that I don't agree with, but Norm, you watched this video.
I did.
It shocked you, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Steve, did it shock you?
Yeah.
So.
And see, the other thing too, if you look at it, is color variation. And most people, if they're on a budget, it's all one color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's multiple colors
There's
in this
multiple
to show
shades, colors.
So, Steve, you were doing a good job of giving the little, just a brief synopsis rundown. I know most people have seen it, but there was some stuff in there, and I've seen it millions of times probably, but there was some stuff in this that I didn't even know. So, you want to give that little brief rundown, and then we'll discuss and break this.
Sure. And I think that just kind of learning about both of them, they're cowboy roughnecks, typical.
I think some of them in the rodeo or something.
Yeah, in the rodeo, construction workers, guys just in that field. And then Patterson started doing research or read a book about Yeti, the Abominable Snowman, started interviewing some people. He actually wrote a small book, Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist? I think he's really was interested in filming. And I kind of relate to that because, your roughneck guys always have a deeper thinking, want to learn something new or other experiences. Gimlin, he was pretty much the same thing. I think he was a descendant from the Yakima, which was a Native American in Washington State. So he had some heritage there. And what was important, he had horses in a trailer. And Patterson didn't, so you had to invite him. You had to invite him along. So Patterson had used a camera, and I can't remember if it was 8mm or not. But his idea was to maybe film some prints or something out in the woods. One of his friends named Al Hodgson, he actually told him about some prints that two researchers had found. It was a large print, a medium size, and then a smaller. And they felt like there was a family there, a family of Bigfoots, maybe mom and dad and a little one. So they decided to go out to this Blue Creek mountain area. Mm-hmm. So they go out there, and when they go out there, that's what they're looking for was the prints. It had gushed down rain, all the stuff they hoped were there to film was not there. So they had decided to stay 2 weeks. They'd already in the woods, already had horses, so they decided to hang out and stay in the woods and see if they could capture anything else.
Let's see what they could see.
Yep. Yeah. So as they're riding there and doing some stuff, they split up one morning, got together back at noon, and they were going to go to another area that was like a canyon. That was kind of rugged area they hadn't been to before. They packed up all their horses. They were going to actually camp there. So they decided they had an extra horse. It was a pack horse they were pulling. So both of them were armed, and Patterson had his camera in his saddlebag. So when they get to this one area,
and this would be the Bluff Creek area that everybody's familiar with, right?
So when they get to that area, the area they really couldn't see because of the trees that had fell, and the trees, I guess, they had a flood a couple years earlier. So they couldn't see the river or the canyon that well. As they turned around the corner, they see this huge creature, or Patty, as everyone says, appeared to be kneeling down at the river, at the creek bed, maybe drinking or something. So as soon as they turned, this thing stood up, turned around and looked at them, and the horses started going crazy. So basically Patterson's horse raises up, wants to take off. He jumps off, grabs the camera, wants to film. The horse takes off down the creek bed, and Patterson's trying to pull the camera up to his eye to see and focus, and he stumbles and falls. They say when he stumbles and falls, this large creature stops and turns around and looks back at him.
And for context, if people are watching the video, that's the part where it starts shaking real bad.
I believe so,
and then
yes.
he gets it back in focus is actually after he hit the ground, because I believe, if I'm correct on this, he was on his knee when it actually cleared up, and you actually can really see it moving.
That's probably correct.
I think because the shakiness at the first was when he was pulling it up and he stumbled and fell.
Well, when it says when it stopped and looked, and I'm not sure if this is part of the film or not, but that's when Gimlin drops the other horse, the lead for the horse, gets off his horse and pulls his rifle. He thought that creature was going to turn around and hurt his partner. So at that point, creature turns and keeps walking, glances back, goes off into the woods, and that's pretty much what they saw and they captured. So then they tried to see how far they could actually go. When they went into the woods, they followed a short distance, and then they kind of grouped a little bit and said, hey, one of them thought it was 7 foot tall, 300 pounds. One of them thought it was Patterson thought it was a whole lot bigger. They did notice that it was female. They thought that they saw breast on the creature. Gimlin wanted to go on farther. They'd followed it so far in the woods, it went up an embankment. Patterson said no. And he said, my rifle's gone, my horse is gone. That thing was huge. And
I'm done.
I'm done. And he's worried more about the larger male, because they saw what they thought was a female. They felt like that. He felt like that if he was in that area and the male was there, humans being around a female or around a child, that may be more aggressive, and they didn't feel like they had the rifles, the level of power, I guess, to actually stop some threat that was coming after them. So they went and found all the horses. They followed the tracks like 600 yards into the woods. Ends up going up an embankment. Patterson didn't want to go any further, so they printed everything. They cast as much as they could, videotaped some of the prints, and then they covered everything up with some bark and twigs to kind of save that. And they went back to camp and headed towards town, told one of their friends about it, headed towards town to get the film developed. But I think the cool part, I'm going to shorten this down, but someone named Bob Timmis, I'm not sure who, I've never really read this before to the day.
I had never heard his name before today.
I think he was an investigator and he was a filmmaker, and he arrived about 8 days later and recasted the prints. And I've actually heard that before, that it was 8 days afterwards. So when someone sees prints and it rains, I've been told to go back and try again and to cast those again. But he cast and tried to do the measurements of the stride, and he kind of verified or pulled together that they were most likely telling the truth, because the creature's stride was farther apart the farther it got away from both the guys, to show it was running in the woods. The prints were about 1.5 inches deep, and his calculations was about 600 pounds. He followed him into the wood line and up an embankment, and he found where he believes that the Sasquatch had sat down. Well, the area it sat down was basically an overlook of where Patterson and Gimlin were actually printing and videotaping and doing things all afternoon. Kind of clarifies that behind the scenes, looking to see what people were doing and curious.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a real quick overview. It kind of says we're not watching the TV. It kind of gives you some ideas of what actually is going on, what some of the things they were thinking.
So that's the brief rundown of what everybody, and people our age, around our age, that's like our gold standard for we all saw it as kids.
Oh yeah.
That's I'm not gonna say that's what got me into it, because I probably saw the film after I had my encounter. But after the encounter, seeing the Legend of Boggy Creek, that all that put together is what kindled that fire. And I'm sure that video, that, what was it, 8 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever it was, less than a minute of video, that's probably sparked, countless numbers of researchers, field researchers, cryptozoologists. It's that video is ingrained in so many people's minds. I mean, when you say Bigfoot, 9 times out of 10, that's the first image that's going to pop in somebody's head.
Yes.
Is that film. Even people nowadays, because the big controversy of trying to tear it apart, and you got your people who say it was somebody in a suit, and you got people who say that this is impossible, because like we talked about earlier, that it's impossible for that time for them to replicate something like that. So you got both sides of the coin as far as
I'm going to say, people are starting to say, well, we can believe in UFOs, why can't we believe in Bigfoot?
Yeah, and I mean, that's been one of my arguments forever. I mean, you have people say there's intelligent life in space coming down here, but you can't believe that there's a undiscovered species of North American great ape. I mean,
It's proven there's new species found every day.
well, and how many times have we talked about the mountain gorilla was not
Even
discovered?
here in the U.S.,
Yeah.
we're still discovering new
Yeah.
species.
So, I mean, past all that, I mean, once you get past all that, and if you know, there's still going to be your skeptics. We understand it. And as bad as it is to say, we've said this, I know you've said it a couple times, Norm, I've said it a couple times, there's people out there who are not going to believe until there's a specimen laying on the table dead. That's horrible that that's what it's going to take, but there are people out there who that's what it's going to take.
Half won't believe that still.
Yeah, exactly. But looking at this video that we watched today, or I watched last night, but then you and I watched earlier today, Norm, if there was any room for doubt in my mind, which there wasn't, but if there was, before I watched that,
That would start to evolve de-ice.
yeah, I mean,
It would take away layers.
If you watch that video with if you're a skeptic and you watch this video with an open mind, when it gets to the point where he brings that clear image of the face up, and you can see the individual hairs, you can see the eyelashes, you can see the scar on her lower lip, the eyes. I think that got both of us.
Yeah, the eyes, especially the eyes.
Because you can see the pupil, you can see. I think you could even see a glint of a light in its eye, like it was where it was looking back, like it was maybe reflecting the sun or something like that. There's just no way that was not a living creature.
Exactly.
And then when I say living creature, I don't mean a man in a suit or a woman in a suit. That was
right. Intelligence.
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah, definitely.
so I'm not an expert on any of this technical stuff that M.K. Davis was talking about in this video, about what the guy used and the softwares and the filters. Pretty much the main thing I got from it was a red filter, whatever that does. But I think the main point that he wanted to get across in that video, and you two might have gotten a different point or a different feeling from it, but he wanted to get across that, so many people say you can't do anything with this video because it's so grainy, it's so bad, and all that stuff. Yeah. His main point was there is a good copy of this video, and that's what this came from. And he, like he said it several times in the video. This software is not going to make something out of nothing, but it's going to make a very.
I talked about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an awesome work he did with the filters.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I talked about it. I mean, with the filters, it brings out a lot more detail. The quality's a lot better because we've both seen the grainy pictures, late night TV and stuff, and it's freaking awesome. I mean, if somebody was to do that now and say, hey, I might question it. But the fact I've seen the original and knowing technology now that you can do things to look at a picture, to see details, I'm impressed.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like a picture that was taken in the 1960s. No. I mean, it literally looks like, a picture that you would take right now. I mean, that's how much he's cleaned this up. And,
I think that may, and I'm no photography person, I think that may be the way the film was developed, or the way the image was on the millimeter film that what was there was a whole lot more than
that's what he said.
We actually saw.
He said if you take one of these bad copies, the copies of the copies of the copies, you're not going to see that.
Has to be the original one.
If you make this off of that original, which is he said it multiple times in it, that this was a good film, this was a good image, and he was able to work with that. Just like when he focused in on that big log that's in that runs lengthways through. I mean, just the detail he was able to pull out of that. I mean,
it was good.
Yeah.
And if you really read deeply into some of the research, I know that it was 24 frames per second versus 16 frames, and there was a bunch of controversy with that. And I think there was a Russian scientist that did some mathematics that a person couldn't move 6 steps in 1 second.
Yeah,
and it kind of narrowed that down to show that it was actually in a different speed.
Yeah.
Improved it.
That was some of the stuff that Dr. Krantz went through getting that pro basketball player.
Yeah,
and trying to
basically the
get
same
him.
thing.
I mean, the guy he got was like right at 7 foot, I think, maybe 7'2", and he couldn't recreate.
Yeah,
He couldn't recreate the movements, number one, but number two, he couldn't recreate the distance that it covered in that time span. So,
and some of that calculation was done back in the 70s.
yeah, and you're always going to have your naysayers that say, "Oh, well, this," or "Oh, that." You know, there comes a point when you have to say, "Okay, look, there is no way that this creature has been hoaxed this long by this many people who were in on it, and it's not ever come out. Nobody's ever come out and said." Now, there have been hoaxers. We're not saying that, but of the sheer number of footprints and photographs, this video, a couple of other videos that are not as good as that one, but yeah, there's some videos out there that are pretty good. I've seen one that was taken from a helicopter that I don't know if it's been released yet. I don't know if it's going to be released. If it is released, it's going to match this one because the movement this creature exhibit, obviously you're looking through like a FLIR or something like that, but the movements are identical. But anyway, at some point, you got to say, okay, enough is enough. The facts are there, the evidence is there. This creature exists. I mean,
there's been hair samples, there's been feces samples. I mean, there's been some blood samples, I believe.
The Snellgrove Lake that off Doug Highcheck's Monster Quest.
Short of the actual body or a living creature, there's enough evidence to actually prove it. I mean, in a court of law, you can convict somebody of murder without a body.
Yeah. Well, and Steve, we talked about the other day with our profession. How many people have been convicted off a eyewitness statement, voluntary statement, and it's good enough to put somebody in prison or give them the death sentence, but it's not good enough to say that we believe you saw this creature.
If you were to go to a court of law and present your evidence for Bigfoot, you could probably sell it, but the scientific community, different case, I guess.
But that's what, and I guess we're about to go down the government rabbit hole because it's inevitable when you start talking about this stuff. I don't think anybody at this table is as naive to believe that the government doesn't think that this thing exists. There are specimens that have been caught and have been worked on. Soft disclosure.
I've been thinking about this. Teddy Roosevelt created the national parks.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's been suspected that he may have had numerous encounters with various.
Oh yeah, DA's talked about. DA thinks he was Bauman, that Roosevelt was Bauman.
That he may have had encounters with Bigfoot and other type cryptids. So I'm going to say it's possible there might be something that's called the Roosevelt Mandate.
That's a very good possibility.
That is to protect the identity and the knowledge of cryptids until such time.
Well, and just to build on that point, Norm, what is when one president beats out another president? What is one of the first things that new incoming president wants to do?
Release any information.
They want to get rid of something that
the other one did.
Another president has. They want to undo that kind of stuff. Has anybody ever tried to undo any of those things that Teddy Roosevelt did? But 87 million acres of national park. They don't even count the state parks.
No.
87 million acres.
There's a protection built in place for that, I think.
That's what I'm saying. I totally agree with what you're saying.
That's why I say the Roosevelt Mandate.
And that's why I bring that up. There's no president has ever said, hey, we got 87 million acres we're sitting on that we could develop and sell and do this and do that. But that's never been done.
Or exploit for natural resources.
And to that point, you know, the DUMBs, deep underground military bases. How many of those can be hid in 87 million acres?
There's a lot of things that could be hidden in 87 million acres.
So, you know, not trying to play the conspiracy theorists here, but Occam's razor, go where the evidence takes us, because that's generally what we try to do on this show. You know, Norm and I did the show on the Lake Norman monster, and I think we did a fairly good job of debunking that, because everybody's eyewitness statement looked a little bit different, looked like a different animal, and we were able to take every statement, with the exception of that one, the one that the diver got his fin bit off. And we still think we know what did that, but he never got a really clear look at it. But every other eyewitness statement, we were able to match something about that statement that matched a known creature in that area. So we're not here to just say, oh, this thing exists because we say it exists. If we can, you know, rationally and logically say that I don't think something like this exists and this is why, we're going to say it. We're not here to, you know, to beat the drum and say,
believe.
You know, if people want to call me crazy for believing in Bigfoot, people want to call me crazy for believing in Dogman, all that stuff, fine. You don't have to buy into what I believe.
We want you to be open
Yeah.
for thought and conversation and discussion.
Because here's the thing, you know,
Pro or con.
Norm and I sitting across from each other, we don't have the exact same beliefs on some of these things. But Norm and I can always have a civil discussion about it. I've never had a paranormal experience. Norm has. That doesn't mean that I don't think paranormal stuff exists. I just haven't ever had. But
we're going to Hell's Gate one weekend.
but that's the same thing. I mean, just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean
it exists or don't exist.
Yeah, because how many people have paranormal experiences in the world every day? So who am I to say just because I haven't? And that's what a lot of these people who have never had a Bigfoot experience or a Bigfoot encounter, you know, they're like, oh well, there's no way that can exist. Well, why? I've never seen one. Well, okay, well, I'm glad it's never happened to you, but it's happened to me. So just because it hasn't happened to you, that makes me and the other 500,000 people who have had experiences crazy.
It's like saying you've never seen an alligator until you go to the zoo.
Right. I mean, I've never seen a gorilla in the wild.
No.
Yeah, I've seen them on TV, but I've seen Bigfoot on TV. I mean, yeah, it's like Tyler brought up. He said he's never seen Paris, but he knows it exists. I've never seen oxygen. Have any of y'all ever seen oxygen?
I've seen a bottle.
You've seen the bottle that's contained, or that they say that it's oxygen, but you've never seen oxygen. You have faith that that it's going to be oxygen, but you've never seen it. I mean, that's what drives me up the wall about some of these people. And there's people that are on the belief side that take stuff to the extreme, that make it hard for people who would believe. Like you just said, but you got to believe. No, you got to let people make their own decision. You know, we present the facts that we see and the things that we find are interesting, and you got to let people make their own decision.
Exactly.
And I think it has to do with money, because if you look at it, I mean, let's just hypothetically think if there's this.
No, you're hitting
this monster's in the woods. Right now, if you go to any park, they tell you everything about bears, not to leave food out, not to do this. I mean, right now they've got part of the Appalachian Trail shut down because of bears. You hear all these bear reports where hikers are injured, so that's a big thing for the parks to put that out. So then you've got, certain areas of the U.S. have snake warnings and things. But in national forest, if that was to release that, in 2002. They brought in $42 billion from the national parks. That went into the economy, $42 billion.
Yeah, Tex and I had this discussion when he was on.
You could hide something for $42 billion.
And I talked about. I think I had the fact or the figure of $30 billion, but 42 to 30. That's
322,000 jobs.
That's a lot of money, a lot of jobs, a lot of revenue for these national parks. And that, like I said, that don't even count the state parks.
DA wrote in The First Nightmare Hunter where the national park hid the abduction of hikers in Arizona.
Yeah,
as part of the storyline. Because why? Money.
Yeah, yeah, the Mogollon Rim. So I mean, money makes the world go round. We all know that, and
also the logging industry. It would affect the logging industry.
I think so too.
oh, and that's another thing that the DA brought up. How many millions and millions of dollars did it cost the logging industry when that I can't remember which owl it was one of the owls that conservative group found it in there, and they shut the logging industry down or in that area, and it cost them millions of dollars. You know, because there's going to be people who are going to obviously there are going to be people who are not going to go camp anymore in these woods, and they're going to lose money off that. These logging companies and anything else that goes through any kind of big. I'm sure some of these pipelines probably run through some of these national forests. Yeah. And that's a hot button topic right now. So, yeah, I think you're on the right track with that, Steve. And I've thought that myself too.
And then through history, if you do any research, where the coyotes and wolves and a lot of those animals were almost wiped out by the government because there were so many of them. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're trying to add red wolves back and things because they were destroyed because of what they were damaging the world with.
Perfect example of that. Do you know what they're doing in part of the LBL?
No.
They're bringing back wood bison, and they've got them in not quarantine, but they got them in restricted areas. Why?
Food source.
There you go. I mean, if you and
we know why.
Let's pull the veil back. I don't think the government has engineered or made Dogman, but I think they've weaponized them. And the reason I say that is because Doc found an article, and we actually did a show on it. Mm-hmm. And supposedly, sometime I want to say it was during the 40s, they supposedly released 22,000 of these Dogmen in Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri.
22,000 or 2,200?
No, 22,000. Because it was not like they released them in one area. It was like a big spread out.
Yeah.
And supposedly these things have a 68-year lifespan. Mm-hmm. Now these were some of the ones that they had experimented on. Mm-hmm. These were not like true wild dogs, but these were some of the ones that they'd caught, and maybe some of them had been born in captivity, but they released them. So, now you think about all that stuff, especially in the LBL. If they're reintroducing wood bison, why do you need to have wood bison?
Food source.
Yeah.
A large.
Why are they so worried about releasing and reintroducing elk in all these all these areas that they're
food source?
Exactly. Now, I'm sure they've got a half a dozen studies where they could. No, it's because of this, and this is helping the population. This is this, and this is this, and da 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 da. They've got all their T's crossed and I's dotted. But the thing is, there's always those little gray areas that are like, yeah, but what about this? So I think that's the right path.
Well, Dogman will be another subject we'll have to talk about, especially as a weapon, because there's been some stories about where Dogman has been hit, and all of a sudden the feds show up.
But the reason I say I don't think the government has made these things is because you can go back to the 1700s, mm-hmm. and even go back to ancient the cynocephaly. There's always been
a form of Dogman.
A form of this. So that's why I wholeheartedly think our government. I mean, this is the government that took dolphins and trained them how to put mines on the side of ships. So it's definitely not beyond them to try to weaponize something that's already there. So look at it. If you got something like a Dogman, and there again, the term Dogman was not coined until
So
1940 something, 1930 something. I forget what year DA said, but everything prior to that would have been what somebody would classify or call a werewolf or a wolf man or something like that. So, you know.
Skinwalker, if you're a Native American.
Yeah, well, you get into a little bit. A skinwalker could take the shape of a. There's like the spirit thing versus.
Different subject.
Yeah, but to kind of bridge that gap, yes, there have people seen things that they think are a dog man that was a skinwalker. I'm sure, because here's the thing. I believe that if a demon appears to you, it's going to appear to you as what scares you the most.
Yeah, the last one I seen looked like a demon with the tail, the wings, the horns, was red with some black.
And that would probably scares the living daylights out of you, right? That would be a fear that that you conjured up in your mind, right?
I don't know if it was my mind, but he was busy fighting an angel, so it was an interesting dog fight going on.
But
I'll tell you a story one time.
My point with that is, as a kid, and you know I love werewolves. I love werewolf movies, but that is something that as a kid it used to scare the daylights out of me. But thinking about a werewolf being real. So if a demon was trying to get to me and scare me, what do you think it's going to appear to me as?
A werewolf.
Yeah, because that would be my deepest and darkest fear, is to be out in the woods and have something like that come after me. Especially as a kid. Maybe not. I mean, yeah, it still would scare me, but so they're going to prey on your fear. Like, Steve, if you're scared of Tasmanian devil, for lack of a better time, something I can't think of, that may be what something like that would see, and that's what I think a skinwalker, and that's why it takes different forms, different shapes, things like that. But a true dog man, I think, it's what it always has been, and what we may have called a werewolf, in earlier times, that now people are starting to call a dog man, because wherever that term came from.
Yeah.
But like you said, that's kind of another rabbit hole for a different show.
Yeah.
But it still all kind of ties into what we're talking about, is things like this, as far as I'm concerned, exist.
And I agree.
It's just a matter of
what's allowed to be released.
Yeah. And
when it's allowed to be released.
Yeah. And we kind of hit on that, pre-recording before we actually went on, and that there again, that's another rabbit hole show we could go down that would, that we could probably talk for 3 hours on. Mm-hmm. So, but the things that, let's get back to the MK Davis video that we're trying to climb up the rabbit hole, get back up to the surface a little bit. Looking at that video.
This helps add authenticity to the fact that the creature is real. Yeah,
because I don't see how anybody could look at that picture.
There's always somebody.
Oh,
and they'll come up with a counter thing with the technology, saying, "Oh, this technology's not right. It's experimental."
Right, and you're 100% right with that. But I'm talking, if you take all that stupidity, because let's call it what it is, if you take all that stupidity and all that argumentative stuff, put it aside, and just look at that picture for what it is, as a logical human being. That's the problem. There's not a lot of logical human beings around. But if you were, for whatever reason, lived under a rock for the past 40 years and had never seen that video, didn't know anything about Bigfoot, Dogman, anything like that, if somebody just showed you that picture and said, "Do you think this is a living creature or something somebody's made?" I guarantee you 9 out of 10 people would say, "Oh, that's a living creature." I can't look at that picture, even trying to be skeptical about it. I believe it exists, but looking at it from an investigator standpoint and trying to pick it apart, I can't look at that picture that we just looked at and pick it apart. Mm-hmm. I don't see anything as an investigator on that picture that Steve, back me up on this.
Nothing stands out that would be counterintuitive. Right. Of it being anything but a living creature.
Yeah. I mean, did you see anything, Steve, that made you think?
Well, first, Stephen Covey always says you must first understand before you can be understood.
Yep.
I think that you have to understand what software he's using or understand that background of that technology. I mean, we used to use Start Witness and everything from the beginning of analyzing video footage from, just the VCR tapes, whenever we would pull images out that were disappeared that we didn't even know they were there. Now, all the way to nonlinear and more of the digital side. Well, that technology has evolved in the last 20 years. I mean, tremendously. I mean, there's so much you can do with video footage now that's unbelievable things that you can do, that you can crunch video footage and pull out every red truck out of 2,000 hours of, film. So, I mean, there's just unbelievable things, and I think our world is changing so rapidly, we can't even keep up with the advancements in technology. I mean, from honeybees finding explosives, we've gone from dogs to honeybees. So we've changed so much so rapidly, I don't think we can keep up with it.
Right.
I mean, I think that technology is just advancing so fast. The layperson who doesn't have any forensics knowledge or background says that's impossible when those things are possible. I mean, it happens every day.
Yeah.
Criminals go to jail every day for advancements in technology.
And people who have been put in jail are vindicated because
You're
of
exactly
the technology.
right.
So, I mean, it works both ways. But all that being said, like I said, knowing all of what you just said, knowing what you said is true because of what we do, I still can't look at that and just from a visual standpoint, look at that picture. I cannot look at that picture and pick out anything that stands out to me that says, oh, well, that's a little bit suspect right there. I mean,
I'm just guessing. This is just a guess, but I think the way that gentleman was able to pull things from 50-something years ago is because it was a film. Mm-hmm. It was a reel-to-reel film, and that's light and things captured on a film versus today's digital cameras. You're limited with pixel quality.
Right.
I think that film captured so much, we don't use that anymore. I think that's the way he did that.
Yeah.
I think if it had been one of our digital cameras or something like that, we wouldn't have been able to pull as much. Like now when you take a trail camera, you can't get any more quality out of things depending on the camera lens itself.
If the camera's
because
40 megapixels, you're not going to get 80
compared
megapixels
to
out
that's
of
just me guessing, but I think it must have been that film as it's exposed to light and captured the old technology.
Yeah.
That's just a guess, but I think that's how he did it.
And like we said at first, we want y'all to look at this video and look at this yourself and make your own decisions. I mean, the three of us can sit here and we can say what we think. Then y'all can
with an open mind.
Yeah, exactly. Look at it with an open mind because, like I said, even somebody like Norm and I who 100% believe, and Steve who 100% believes, it was just like wow, and for it to be a wow factor to us, that's saying something. I think because it's
the eyes that really got me.
Yeah, but it's not like for us. It's not like, oh wow, it exists. It was wow. That really
brought it out.
Yeah, I mean,
brought it more to life.
Yeah. So, but anyway, what'd y'all think of that one, boys?
I liked it.
We could talk on and on and on about this one, but we're kind of nearing the end of. Actually, I think we're over what we normally do on this one. But this is. We've said it before. Dance is what brung you, and most every cryptozoologist, this is what got them started. Is Bigfoot, Patterson Gimlin. It is such an iconic piece of American history, and it is. It's a piece of American history. There's no other country that I can think of that has a film or a piece of film like this that is so iconic that everybody, when you see it, you know exactly what it is. Or if you hear the word Bigfoot.
Well, except for maybe Tibet because of their verbal history.
Right, but
that'd be the only exception.
Yeah. But as far as a piece of like, if you see that on a TV screen.
It's on every bumper.
Yeah, you know, you're not having to say, where have I seen that before? You know exactly what that is.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah, I think any Bigfoot hunter or podcaster, they've all got a tie to this film because that's got to be their start.
Yeah,
if it's not, it's another film or an incident. But I think most of them comes down to Patterson.
I don't think any serious Bigfoot researcher hasn't not seen that.
No, yeah. I mean, if you want to do this, you need to research yourself.
Right.
Start from what you're interested in and
but
track down that technology and those things.
That's the thing, is it transcends just, there's certain videos that the three of us have seen that just a normal person who doesn't believe in Bigfoot has probably never seen, because they're not in our community. They don't watch the same podcasts we watch. They don't have access to that. But that video transcends the Bigfoot and cryptid community.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's seen that.
And you got to think about it from like right now backwards is going to be the best evidence, because right now forward AI is going to take over.
Yeah, and that's when you start getting where you can't.
You're going to have presidents walking around with Bigfoot, and it's going to look real. I mean, so AI is going to take over and fool a lot of people from now on. So everything now backwards is kind of what you got to look at.
When he's laying up in bed, so it's already being done.
So the AI technology is going to fool some people, I believe. But the old films, just like the Sierra Sounds recordings, they've stand the test of time. And they have.
Yeah,
you're right. Well, Norm,
look backwards to look forward. So,
how can people get in touch with us, Norm, if they want to talk to us about this one?
You can find us on Facebook on What's Really Out There. We have a Facebook page. You can leave a message on the page. You can contact the admins or moderators. Contact us about questions. You got a problem you want to talk to somebody about. You want to relate a story. That's the best place to find us. Bobby can tell you the other place where you can leave some comments.
You can, our YouTube channel, which, we're on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify, places like that. You can listen to podcasts. But if you really want to, I think, get the better experience, go to our YouTube channel, which is What's Really Out There. That's a good way to leave a comment. If you want to specifically leave a comment about a certain episode, just leave a comment. Watch the episode, leave a comment on that. Subscribe, like, share. We're trying to build that, and I think we're up to almost 300, or over 300, Tyler. We're over 300 subscribers now on our YouTube channel. Facebook page is doing really well. We're at like 200 and something there, I think, Norm.
Take over.
270 was the last number I saw.
So I've been a little busy, some other stuff.
So, but yeah, we're growing, and that's the thing. It's a slow effort, but over here past 2-3 months, we've really hit a good spell of growth. So we also have an email, which we hadn't had a whole lot of people email us on that, but it's there. What's Really Out There 2022@gmail.com. If you got a story you want us to tell, you want us to look into something, you want us to come take a look at something, I mean, we're more than happy to come out. If you got something going on you want us to come take a look at, we'll figure out how to get there. I mean, Steve and I and Jesse went out to somewhere in Oconee County last weekend. Norm's got a little excursion he's planning. So, we love to get out in the field. We love to go out and find new things, explore new things. Also, any of you are in the Texas area in September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I know I'm going to be there. I think Norm's going to try to be there. I think Tyler and Taylor are going to try to be there. The whole DAX Machina crew will be there. It's the International Dogman. It's the second annual International Dogman Conference. I'm going to be speaking.
Better you than me.
Lord help me. Or Lord help everybody's got to listen to me. But we'll also have a table there with some What's Really Out There stuff and some DAX Machina stuff. And we'll have some Lone Wolf custom stuff for sale. Doc's going to have some Dark Angel medical stuff. DA's going to have some books. If Norm shows up, I'm sure he's going to have some cookbooks. So, if you're in the Texas area, September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, in White Settlement, which is just outside of Fort Worth. It's a 3-day event. The Friday is going to be the meet and greet. Then the show is, or the actual conference will be a Saturday and Sunday. So, yeah, if you're out there, come by and say hey. We'll be there. But other than that, Steve, you got anything else?
No, I'm good.
Norm?
Enjoyed it.
No, I'm good.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to be it from the cabin. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.